Hello and welcome back to Rue's Life. The sun is shining. It's actually a really lovely day now. It was raining quite heavily this morning, but that is really good for the ground and for the plants. So I'm going to give you a tour of the plot and the polytunnel. So starting here in the polytunnel, so I've got some things doing really well and some things not doing so well, and I'm going to show you everything. A combination of factors have meant that, as I say, some of my plants are doing well and I'm really pleased, and some are not doing so well. So we'll have a walk around and I'll show you everything and I'll talk you through them as we go. So starting in this bed here, you can see that the romaine lettuce are doing really well. I'm growing those predominantly for the chickens, but I will enjoy some of those too, and as you can see they're really flourishing. And then just towards the camera, the carrots, which are sweet imperator, I think that's what they are, they've germinated and they're doing really well. I will thin them out a little. And then just moving across, there's just 3 trays there of flower seedlings. Let's just get a little bit closer. So the ones furthest away are some poppies. The ones in the middle are some snapdragon, and the ones nearest to us are calendula. Now my calendula are way behind. This time last year I was actually picking calendula and having them in vases in the house. There are some self-seeded ones across in the flower bed, but they are not much further ahead than these which were sown this year. So as I say, some things are doing okay and some things are a little behind. So let's move across to the next bed. There's a tub just there between the 2 beds. I did intend to make this area into a bed this year, but I just haven't got round to it, so that's something for the future. So that tub's got some soil mix in it, and it'll just need topping up with compost, and that's where my cucumbers will go. And then the bed across there, you can see the early Nantes 2 carrots are looking really good. I had good germination initially on one row, but the other row for some reason didn't germinate as well. So I actually re-sowed some second sowing of those same carrots, and they have germinated now. I'll take you a little bit closer in a second and show those to you. And then just behind those are the last of the potatoes. You may have seen, I will put a link, that I harvested some potatoes from this bed here, which were planted at the same time as these, so I'm just going to leave those in for a little bit longer, and then I will also pull those. So I've got the bed space, and we'll see what kind of a little harvest we get from those. So let's just move a bit closer to those carrots. So you can see this row here, they were the original ones that I sowed. In fact, I think there were 3 rows, you can just about see, but this 3rd row didn't do so well. But if I just zoom in, you can see we've got some germination there on the 2nd sowing. And then moving across, in that corner there I've put my Swiss chard, which I started out as seeds in a pot, and once they started to become a little bigger I have popped those across. The variety is Bright Lights, and they're starting to establish themselves quite nicely. They are quite close together, but because of the space that I have, I do find that chard doesn't seem to mind too much, so I should get away with that. Then we've got a space, and then I've got some red onion, which is Red Baron. Again, I'll just zoom in, and you should be able to see they were grown from seed, started in a tray, and then they've been transplanted, and they're coming along. And then to the right of those I have got my parsnip, which I've got a couple that have germinated, but I'll give them a little bit more time. If they don't come, which I suspect they may not, because we'd had such a cold snap for such a duration of time, although it's been warm in the day, it had been quite cold at night. and parsnips really like it warm and moist, so I've kept it watered, but of course I've not been able to control the temperature, so I'll just do a second sowing of those if necessary. And then if we just move across to this crate, and I'll get a little bit closer for you. So in here we have got some rocket here, which is doing brilliantly, and next to the rocket is some perpetual spinach, and then I've got some dwarf green kale to the right, and what else have we got in there? Some rhubarb that just didn't germinate, but actually I'm not going to bother re-sowing that, and I'll show you why in a little moment. I have got a second sowing of my Yukiki-kiri squash, simply because my first batch of seeds didn't germinate, and we've got a little bit of basil, let's just lean you in, just in here, which is germinating, more Yukiki-kiri, and then some butternut squash, which again hasn't germinated. So I've got a mishmash in there, some doing, some not doing so well. Let's move up. Oh, and just to the right of those are those leek, which I moved from one of the beds into this pot temporarily, but they will need to go outside because they're getting a bit sort of weedy. So I will either leave them here and eat them as baby leek, or I'll move them outside and see if I can establish them a bit better. So let's move up to the staging here. So I'll just pan across so you can see we've got a whole array of bits and bobs going on here. So I'm just going to move the camera and then I can show you what we've got. So on the left there I've got some sweet peas that are doing okay. They haven't all germinated. I may direct sow some at the same time that I get these planted out, and I am a little bit late getting them out because the weather's not been brilliant. The same for the sunflowers, they're actually looking as though they're desperate to get out now. They need to get out of those pots, and if I don't move them out soon, they're not going to survive, so they desperately need to get out. I've got the parsley, the curly leaved parsley and the plain leaved parsley. That's looking good, and it will need moving either into a larger pot or into the bed. The coriander, I should have moved it, and as you can see, you know, it's dying, so I'll just have to re-sow some more coriander. There are some more of the red baron onions that I sowed from seed, and they're actually looking really good, so I will move those at some point. The purple sprouting broccoli in here is looking really good, and I'm pleased about that, and I will show you why in a moment. The celery is desperate to get out of that pot, and I should have done it sooner, so I will get on and do that. I do need to re-sow there's some basil here, so there should have been 2 pots of basil. One that I've shown you already is doing okay, but the basil chives, garlic chives and oregano I need to re-sow because they haven't germinated. And then here I've got various squash, and they're all doing differently, but they've germinated and they're coming. These Crown Prince squash, I've just moved them into larger pots, I think it was either yesterday or the day before, so they're going to have a much better chance now of improving in these pots, and the same with the courgette. And these cucumbers, I have just given them a little bit more space. And these other squash, which are butternut, which is here, and the scallop yellow bush, which are here, and there's another butternut there. And then over here are my geraniums, and again some of them have suffered a little because it's been a bit hot. It's just been bizarre really. I would have had them in the baskets outside by now, and they've been in here, and on the hot days it's been a little bit too hot and things have dried out a little, but I will get them into pots and outside as soon as I can. And then my tomatoes, they're doing okay. They're smaller than I would like at this time of the year, but you know, we'll get there in the end. So you can see I've got my tomato plants, and they're all looking pretty good, if a little small. Here we've got the aubergine, and they're looking good. I haven't grown aubergine before, so I've nothing to compare from years gone by, but I'm pleased with the fact that they've germinated. All but one pot there have germinated. Some are larger than others, and they'll need to be moved into larger pots soon. The chilies I should have potted on and didn't, so you know, they're there and they've survived, but they're very much behind. So that is what's going on in here. So we keep getting showers, so while the sun is out and it's not raining, let's go outside. So the strawberry plants are looking really healthy and I'm really pleased with those. And then just to the left of those, I've got some bay in a pot at the back that my sister gave to me. I haven't decided where I'm going to put that yet. The lavender plant is definitely looking better now that I've put it in a larger pot, and I'm keeping it outside until I put it to its final place. And then these are some cranesbill geranium. Again, I got them from my sister and I haven't decided where they're going yet. And let's move over to the potatoes. So the potatoes in the box beds are coming great. They need earthing up soon, as do the ones in the bags. I need to actually weed or move them and trim the grass underneath them, but they're coming up, so I can pop some compost on top and then start to roll those bags up. But fortunately I've managed to get them to survive through the frost, so that's great. And then just to the left, my sister had given me some rhubarb, which was it was actually in a big tub with some soil, and I've just transplanted it into this tub here. Now it's looking a bit worse for wear, but I just don't think it liked being moved. But I'm pretty confident that that will bounce back. And then talking of rhubarb, let's just move again. So I'd mentioned earlier in the polytunnel that I wasn't too bothered that the rhubarb seeds that I'd sown hadn't actually germinated, and this is the reason why. A combination of the rhubarb that my sister's given me, and there's actually 2 or 3 plants in that pot, and this rhubarb, which I actually grew from seed, so it's coming into its 3rd year now. I'd started it off in the polytunnel, and then it was in a pot, and then I popped it into this little bed, and as you can see, it's doing really, really well this year, and I think we're going to get some really good harvest from it. And then let's move across to the outside beds. So as you can see, the one on the left, I haven't made any more progression with that, so I'm just leaving it for now until I have some more time. And let's move over and have a proper look at the other beds. So just while we're passing this little pot, this has got the raspberry canes temporarily that my sister gave to me. They've got a little bit more space in there than the pot that they were in, and once I've decided where they're going, then they will be put into their final growing space. So let's properly move on now to these other beds. So I did have some corn in this end of the bed, and there were a few plants in there. I think there were 6. There are 2 remaining, so I will re-sow some more corn. Next along are the broad beans, and they're a little bit behind, but they're coming, so I'm quite pleased. I've lost 2 of those plants, but the rest are doing okay, so you know, I'll just leave them to do their thing. A couple of them have started to flower already, and I would rather they'd done a bit more growing, but some of them are looking really healthy, so hopefully they will continue to grow. And then just behind those, I'm going to move the camera. These are my peas, and again they're a little bit behind, but there are some plants. The largest ones that you can see are the ones that I started off in the polytunnel and then moved, and then the rest that you can see coming up I just direct sowed into the ground. So again, they're a little bit later than I would like, but I'm hopeful that they're going to carry on and work their way up those pea sticks, and I should get a reasonable harvest. And then let's move around again. Between the peas and the beans, I have some Californian poppy, which I started off in the polytunnel, and they were in a tray, and again I should have got them out sooner but didn't. So I've moved them all. Some of them have survived, some of them haven't, but I'm sure they will soon come. And then on to the beans. Let's just move the camera again. So you can see we've got one fairly healthy looking plant here, one that might survive, but all of the rest. So there was one bean plant at the bottom of each of these canes, and unfortunately put them out too soon, and they just haven't survived the cold. But there are, at the bottom of each bean cane, as I put the plants in, I pop 2 to 3 beans in direct sow, so hopefully they will come. But I am also going to pop some more in some pots in the polytunnel as a backup plan. So let's move down to bed number 2. So in this bed I've got, right at the far back on the left hand side there, that's the celery that I overwintered, and it's looking great, and again I'm already picking and using that. Then I've got the leek, which I moved. I'll pop a link to that video. That was this spring that I moved those out. Then I've got my onions, which are not looking too bad actually. I was a little bit worried that they weren't going to come, but they're coming. So that was that mixed bag of red, white and yellow onion, but I don't know the variety. Then on the right hand side here, that is the alpine strawberry, which I started off last year, so I'm hoping that will fruit this year. I've just left it where it is. Eventually I want to sort of get all my fruits together, and they're probably going to go in that bed where I've got the blue tarpaulin at the moment. So the raspberries, the alpine strawberry, some of the rhubarb, and possibly the strawberries. I'm not quite sure yet, but certainly I want to try and get the fruits together. And then to the left of that, they are the banana shallots that my sister gave me, and they're not looking too bad. And then here is my garlic, which I've lost a few of them, but there's some coming, so I think that's going to be a bit disappointing, but some is better than none. And now let's move on to bed number 3, which is the disaster bed. So this is bed number 3, and I had ordered some brassica netting, which should have arrived weeks ago. And if you've watched my ponderings from the polytunnel, I won't bore you again with the same story. But suffice to say, I was let down. So I have got brassica netting on the way. However, I put out my sprouts, kale, cauliflower and purple sprouting broccoli into this bed, and they were looking really good. However, one of the reasons I wanted my netting before I put them into this bed is that we have partridge, pheasant and pigeons galore, and they have just had a field day and decimated these plants, and they are highly unlikely to survive. So I've still got some kale and some purple sprouting broccoli in the polytunnel, but I will have to re-sow the other two because yeah, they're just not going to do. So the sprouts and the cauliflower I will start some more, and again I'm going to be a little bit behind. I am determined to have a successful season with brassicas. So that's bed 1, 2 and 3. The bed that hasn't been uncovered yet is bed 5, and behind me, if we just turn around, this is bed 4, and I haven't got anything in it yet, but this is where I'm going to grow my squash. And then of course, next to the polytunnel and above that bed is the new shed. So let's go and have a little look at the shed. So by now you should have seen the video of Chris and I putting this up. It was so heavy, but I'm absolutely thrilled with it. It's so cute. So we haven't done any more to it since we put it up. I've got some roofing felt and we need to put that on, and I'll just show you. Well, let's move around. So you can see it does need the roofing felt. It's the same on both sides. However, it's a little bit dark inside, but I'll take you in. Let's see if we can adjust. It needs sorting and tidying, but you can see there is polythene which does need to be tacked into place. But so far, despite the fact we've had torrential rain, it's actually stayed dry inside despite not having had the roofing felt on. So I'm really hopeful that with the felt on as well, we're not going to have any problem with damp or moisture getting in. It is only going to be used for storage. It's a funny little shed with a low window, and the way that we've sited it, it's not going to get a huge amount of light, but it will be a nice place to come and sit because it's actually cool compared to the polytunnel, and it's going to be dry. As I say, we're going to put sealant around the base between the wood and the slabs. I'm going to paint the inside. I've got some shelves to go up and some other bits and bobs to go in here, so I'm going to get it kitted out and I'm going to use it for tools and pots and equipment and so on, and as I say, a seating area and a workspace for other bits and bobs. So let's just show you around inside slowly. So it's a 6 foot by 6 foot floor space inside, but it's a funny little space with this very tall apex. But I can stand comfortably inside and move around. Now the door actually opens inwards, which of course does actually mean there's a little bit less space to use inside, but it's actually quite good security, and I believe that's why it was constructed this way, because it'd be much harder to break in. So we're going to leave it the same, and I will be putting a lock on it because I will have a lot stored in here. It's crazy, a lot of my equipment is currently in the polytunnel and there is no lock, but once you put something like a shed up, it kind of is a bit of an invitation, isn't it? Oh, what's in the shed? So the contents would be covered under the outbuilding contents insurance that we have on the farm, so it makes sense to pop a lock on here. But it's a lovely little space. As I say, it's so cool to come in when it's hot in the polytunnel, so I think it's going to be a great little space. And once I get it all kitted out, I'll probably do some filming while I'm sprucing it up and making it mine, but I'll give you a tour once it's all finished. So that's where I'm up to at the moment. As you can see, I don't like to talk about sort of failure. As I say, I've said it so many times, it's all part of the fun, isn't it? Some things do, some things don't. But it is still early days and there's plenty of time to re-sow and to replant and to catch up again. So I hope you've enjoyed this little tour. I'd love to know from you how you're getting on. What have you got that's doing really well? What have you got that's not doing so well? Are you being affected by the weather? Yeah, be really interested, especially people in the UK. Are you struggling the same as me at the moment? And what's your nemesis? So for me, it's brassicas. What's your one thing that you battle with? Or indeed, is there something that you've had issues with in the past, or that you've avoided like I have, and then you've had great success with? So parsnips were my nemesis and I've conquered my parsnips. I'm hoping to get some germination this year, but I've had some really good seasons with my parsnips, so I feel confident now that I've conquered my parsnip nemesis, if you like, and now it's time to conquer the brassica hurdle. So thank you so much for watching. If you are new to my channel, please do consider subscribing and hit that bell to get notifications of all my latest videos. And if you've enjoyed this video, please do consider watching the videos that pop up at the end as well, around about now. Take care, and I'll see you all again soon.